Emma sat on the dusty wooden floor of her grandmother's tiny house in Manchester. The silence felt heavy round her. It had been 1 month since Rose passed away, and Emma still couldn't believe she was gone. The house felt so empty without her. Grandmother's gentle voice and warm smile. Emma was 25 years old now, but she remembered being just 8 when her parents died in that terrible car accident. Rose had taken her in without any hesitation. She gave Emma all the love a child could need. Rose taught her how to bake cookies, helped her with homework, and told her bedtime stories every night. Emma never felt like she was missing anything, because Rose filled her life with so much care. But Rose had always been quiet about her own past. Whenever Emma asked about her childhood or where she came from, Rose would smile and say she was born in London. She spoke English perfectly, just like everyone else in their neighborhood. However, Emma noticed something strange over the years. Sometimes, very late at night, she would hear Rose speaking softly in her bedroom. The words sounded different, like another language entirely. When Emma asked about it the next morning, Rose would just laugh and say she must have been talking in her sleep. Now Emma had to clean up the house and decide what to do with Rose's belongings. She walked slowly through each room, touching the old furniture and looking at family photographs on the walls. Most of the pictures showed Emma and Rose together at different ages. There were photos from Emma's school plays, birthday parties, and holidays. But Emma realized there were no pictures of Rose as a young woman, and no photos of Rose's own family or childhood. Emma went into Rose's bedroom and began sorting through clothes and books. The room smelled like the lavender soap Rose always used. Emma felt sad but also grateful for all the happy memories they had shared in this house. She was carefully folding Rose's sweaters when she heard a strange sound under her feet. One of the wooden floorboards seemed loose and made a creaking noise when she stepped on it. Emma got down on her hands and knees to examine the floor more closely. She pushed on the loose board and discovered it could be lifted up. Her heart started beating faster with curiosity. Why would there be a loose floorboard in Rose's bedroom? Emma carefully pulled up the board and gasped at what she saw. There was a small wooden box hidden in the space under the floor. The box was wrapped in old, soft cloth and looked like it had been there for many years. Emma's hands were shaking as she lifted it out. The box felt heavy and important. She sat cross-legged on the floor and slowly unwrapped the cloth. The wooden box was beautiful, with tiny flowers carved into the sides. Emma opened the box very carefully. Inside, she found dozens and dozens of old letters. The paper was yellow with age and felt delicate in her hands. But what surprised Emma most was the writing on the letters. It wasn't English at all. The letters were written in beautiful, flowing script that looked almost like art. The handwriting was elegant and careful, as if someone had taken great time to write each word perfectly. Under the letters, Emma found several black and white photographs. She picked up the first one and felt her breath catch in her throat. The photograph showed a young woman who looked exactly like Rose, but she was standing in front of buildings that Emma had never seen before. The architecture looked fun and exotic, with tall towers and curved doorways. The young woman in the photo was wearing clothes that seemed from another time and place. Emma looked through more photographs. In each one, the young woman who looked like Rose was in different locations, always in front of buildings and landscapes that didn't look like England at all. There were pictures of her with other people, probably family members, but Emma had never seen any of these faces before. In some photos, the young woman was smiling and laughing with children and older adults who must have been her relatives. Tears began falling down Emma's cheeks. Her beloved grandmother had kept this entire part of her life secret. Rose had never mentioned any of these places or people. Emma felt confused and hurt. Why had Rose hidden this from her? Where were these photographs taken? Who were these people? And what did all these letters say? Emma picked up one of the letters and held it up to the light coming through the bedroom window. The handwriting was so beautiful it looked like poetry, but she couldn't understand a single word. The letters curved and flowed across the page in patterns that seemed completely foreign to her. She could see that whoever wrote these letters had put great care and emotion into every word. Emma wiped away her tears and made a firm decision. She would find someone who could read these letters and tell her what they said. She needed to understand who her grandmother really was and where she had come from. Emma felt scared but also excited. She was about to discover a whole new side of the person who had loved her most in the world. Tomorrow, she would begin searching for answers about Rose's mysterious past. Emma woke up early the next morning with the wooden box sitting on her kitchen table. She had barely slept all night, thinking about the mysterious letters and photographs. She made herself a cup of tea and stared at the strange writing once more. The flowing script looked beautiful but completely impossible to understand. Emma knew she needed help from someone who could read different languages. After breakfast, Emma carefully placed the letters and photographs back in the wooden box. She wrapped everything in a soft towel to keep it safe. Then she walked to the local university, which was only 20 minutes from her grandmother's house. The university had a large languages department, and Emma hoped someone there could help her solve this mystery. Emma felt nervous as she walked through the university halls. She had never been inside the building before. Students were walking quickly between classes, carrying heavy books and talking loudly. Emma asked a young woman at the information desk where she could find someone who specialized in foreign languages. The woman smiled kindly and gave Emma directions to Professor William Thompson's office. Emma knocked softly on the office door. She heard a gentle voice say, "Come in," from inside. When Emma opened the door, she saw a man in his 60s with grey hair and warm, kind eyes sitting behind a desk covered with books and papers. He was wearing a comfortable sweater and had reading glasses hanging round his neck. "Hello, I'm Professor Thompson," the man said with a friendly smile. "How can I help you today?" Emma felt a bit shy, but Professor Thompson seemed so kind that she relaxed quickly. She explained about finding the hidden box in her grandmother's house and showed him the letters and photographs. Professor Thompson listened carefully to every word Emma said. His expression became more serious as he looked at the documents. Professor Thompson put on his reading glasses and examined the letters very closely. He turned them over in his hands and studied the handwriting carefully. Emma watched his face, hoping he would be able to help her understand what she had found. "These letters are written in Persian," Professor Thompson said softly. "Persian is the main language spoken in Iran, and also in some other countries in that region. The handwriting is very elegant and formal. Whoever wrote these letters was clearly well educated and took great care with their writing." Emma's hands began shaking when she heard this news. Her mind was racing with questions and confusion. "But, Professor, my grandmother always told me she was born in London. She spoke perfect English and never mentioned anything about Iran or Persian. Why would she have letters written in Persian?" Professor Thompson set down the letters and looked at the black and white photographs. He studied each picture carefully, paying attention to the buildings and clothing in the background. His expression was thoughtful and understanding. "Emma," Professor Thompson said gently, "sometimes people had to leave their home countries during very difficult and dangerous times. When they arrived in new countries like England, they often changed their names and created new stories about their past. This helped them start fresh lives and kept them safe from any troubles they had left behind." Emma felt like the world was spinning round her. Everything she thought she knew about her grandmother was suddenly unclear. Rose had been the most important person in her life. But now Emma wondered if she had ever really known her at all. Professor Thompson could see that Emma was upset and confused. "Would you like me to help you translate some of these letters?" he asked kindly. "It might help you understand your grandmother's story better. But I want you to know that this process might bring up some difficult emotions." Emma nodded. Eagerly, she needed to know the truth, even if it was complicated or sad. Professor Thompson suggested that Emma visit his office every day after work, and they would translate the letters together slowly and carefully for the next few weeks. Emma developed a daily routine. She would finish her job at the local bookstore at 5 o'clock, then walk straight to the university. Professor Thompson was always waiting for her with tea and a warm welcome together. They would sit at his desk and work on translating one letter at a time. The process was slow because Professor Thompson wanted to make sure Emma understood not just the words, but also the emotions and cultural context behind them. As they worked together, an incredible story began to emerge from the old letters. Emma learned that the young woman in the photographs was actually named Yasmin, not Rose. The letters told the story of a brave and intelligent woman who had lived in Iran during the 1960s. Yasmin came from a loving family, but political changes in Iran had made life very dangerous for people like them. The letters described how Yasmin had been forced to leave everything she knew and loved behind. "Your grandmother was incredibly courageous," Professor Thompson said warmly one afternoon as they finished translating a particularly emotional letter. "She gave up her language, her name, her culture, and her homeland to build a safe and peaceful life. She did this not just for herself, but for her future family. That includes you, Emma." Emma felt tears in her eyes, but this time they were tears of both sadness and pride. Her grandmother had sacrificed so much, including her very identity, to protect the people she loved. As the weeks passed, Emma and Professor Thompson spent many hours together in his cozy office, carefully translating each letter. With every new document they read, a more complete picture of Emma's grandmother began to form. The story that emerged was both beautiful and heartbreaking, filled with courage and sacrifice that Emma had never imagined through the letters. Emma learned that her grandmother's real name was Yasmin, and she had lived in Tehran, the capital city of Iran. Yasmin had been a school teacher who loved her job very much. She taught young children how to read and write, and she especially enjoyed sharing poetry and stories with her students. The letters showed that Yasmin was passionate about literature and spent her free time reading books and writing her own poems. Emma discovered that Yasmin came from a very loving and progressive family. Her parents believed strongly that education was important for everyone, including women and girls. This was not always a popular opinion in Iran during the 1960s, but Yasmin's family was brave enough to stand by their beliefs. They encouraged Yasmin to become a teacher and supported her dreams of helping children learn. However, the political situation in Iran began to change in ways that made life very dangerous for families. Like Yasmin's, Professor Thompson explained to Emma that during this time period, many people who held certain beliefs or came from particular backgrounds faced serious threats. Families who supported education for women or who held different political views often had to fear for their safety. The letters revealed the heartbreaking story of Yasmin's escape from Iran. She had been forced to leave her homeland very suddenly, with almost no time to say goodbye to her family or pack her belongings. Emma read about Yasmin's dangerous and difficult journey across all different countries. She had traveled through places Emma had never heard of, always moving at night and hiding during the day. Yasmin's journey to England had taken many months. She had to walk long distances, ride in uncomfortable vehicles, and stay in places where she felt scared and alone. Throughout this entire journey, Yasmin carried only a small bag with a few photographs and some letters from her family. These were the same letters that Emma had found hidden under the floorboard. When Yasmin finally reached England, she realized she had to create a completely new identity to stay safe. She changed her name from Yasmin to Rose, which sounded more English. She learned to speak English very quickly and practiced until she could speak without any accent that might give away her true background. She created a story about being born in London and never spoke Persian again. Even when she was alone, Professor Thompson showed Emma one letter that was different from all the others. This letter was addressed to Yasmin's sister back in Iran, but it had never been sent. As Professor Thompson read the translation aloud, Emma felt tears streaming down her face. In the letter, Yasmin had written, "My dearest sister, I carry our family's love in my heart every single day. Even though I cannot speak our beautiful language aloud anymore, I whisper our mother's sweet lullabies to myself each night before I sleep. I remember every word of the poems for the youths to recite. And I still say our family prayers in Persian when no one can hear me. I pray every day that someday my children or their children will know where they truly come from and understand the love that brought us to this new land." When Professor Thompson finished reading, Emma sat quietly for 7 whole minutes. Suddenly, so many things about her grandmother made perfect sense. Emma remembered all those nights when she had heard Rose whispering softly in her bedroom. Emma had always wondered what those quiet sounds were, but now she understood. Her grandmother had been speaking Persian, saying the prayers and poems and lullabies from her childhood in Iran. Emma realized that her grandmother had never actually forgotten her homeland or her real identity. As Yasmin, instead, she had buried these precious memories very deep inside her heart to keep them safe. Rose had been protecting not just herself, but also Emma and any future family members who might be put in danger if anyone discovered the truth about their background. Professor Thompson helped Emma understand that Yasmin's story was not unusual. Many immigrants throughout history had been forced to hide their true identities and create new lives in foreign countries. Sometimes this was the only way they could survive and build safe homes for their families. Emma, Professor Thompson said gently, putting down the translated letter, "I want you to understand something very important. Your grandmother's love for you is completely real and genuine. Everything she did to take care of you came from her heart, her new identity. As Rose was just like a protective shell she needed to wear to keep that love safe." Emma nodded through her tears. She was beginning to understand that her grandmother had made incredible sacrifices, giving up her language, her culture, her name, and even her ability to talk about her past. She had done all of this to create a secure and peaceful life for Emma. Rose had been both Yasmin and Rose at the same time, carrying her true self hidden safely inside while showing the world only what was necessary to protect her family. One afternoon, as Emma and Professor Thompson finished translating another letter, the professor sat back in his chair with a thoughtful expression. He had been quiet for several minutes, carefully reading through some of the older letters they had already translated. "Emma," Professor Thompson said slowly, "I've been thinking about something. In several of these letters, your grandmother mentions family members by name. She writes about her sister Miriam, her parents, and some cousins. I'm wondering if any of these people might still be alive in Iran today." Emma felt her heart start beating faster. The idea had never occurred to her that she might have living relatives somewhere in the world. She had grown up thinking that Rose was her only family, and after Rose died, Emma had felt completely alone. Now Professor Thompson was suggesting that she might have aunts, uncles, or cousins she had never known about. "Do you think it would be possible to find them?" Emma asked nervously. "I mean, it's been so many years since my grandmother left Iran, and I don't even know if they would want to hear from me." Professor Thompson smiled warmly. "The university has connections with many international organizations and other universities around the world. We could try to reach out through official channels and see if we can locate any of your grandmother's family members. It might take some time, but it's definitely worth trying." Emma felt both excited and scared about this possibility. Part of her desperately wanted to connect with her grandmother's family and learn more about where she came from, but another part of her worried about what she might discover, or whether these relatives would even believe her story. Over the next few weeks, Professor Thompson used his professional contacts to reach out to people in Tehran. He contacted other language professors, cultural organizations, and even some government offices that helped people research their family histories. The process was slow and sometimes frustrating. But Professor Thompson was patient and determined to help Emma. Finally, after almost a month of searching, they received incredible news. Through a cultural center in Tehran, they had found someone amazing, Maryam, who was Yasmin's younger sister. Maryam was now in her 70s and still lived in Iran. When the cultural center contacted her and explained about Emma's search, Maryam had been overjoyed and eager to make contact. Professor Thompson arranged for Emma and Maryam to have their first video call on a Saturday afternoon. Emma spent the whole week feeling nervous about the meeting. She didn't know what to expect or what she would say to this, and she had never known existed. She practiced a few Persian words that Professor Thompson had taught her, hoping to make a good impression. When the video call connected, Emma immediately gasped and started crying. The elderly woman on the computer screen looked so much like her grandmother Rose that it was almost like seeing a ghost. Maryam had the same gentle eyes, the same warm smile, and even some of the same facial expressions that Emma remembered from her childhood. Maryam spoke some English, though not perfectly, and Professor Thompson was there to help translate when needed. Through her own tears, Maryam began to speak. "Emma, my dear child," Maryam said in accented English, "we never knew what happened to your grandmother Yasmin after she disappeared from Iran. Our family searched for her for many years. We contacted everyone we could think of and asked every person who left the country if they had seen her. Finally, after so many years with no news, we sadly assumed that she had died during her journey to safety." Maryam wiped tears from her eyes and continued, "To know that she lived a full and happy life, that she found safety in England, and that she raised a beautiful granddaughter like you. This is the greatest gift our family could ever receive." Over the following weeks, Emma and Maryam had many video calls. Each conversation revealed new and wonderful details about Emma's grandmother's childhood and early life. Maryam shared stories that brought Yasmin to life in ways Emma had never imagined. Emma learned that Yasmin had been the smartest student in her school. She was always reading books and writing her own poetry. Yasmin had big dreams of someday opening a school specifically for girls, where they could get the same education as boys. She was passionate about teaching and spent hours helping younger children with their homework. Maryam also told Emma about the more personal side of her grandmother's life. Yasmin loved cooking traditional Persian dishes, especially a special rice recipe with saffron that made the whole house smell wonderful. She enjoyed sitting outside in the evenings and telling stories under the stars. Yasmin had a beautiful singing voice and knew dozens of traditional songs and lullabies. During their calls, Maryam began teaching him a simple Persian words and phrases. Each new word felt like discovering a hidden treasure. When Emma learned to say grandmother in Persian, or love, or family, She felt like she was finding pieces of her grandmother that had been lost for decades. Emma realized that learning about her grandmother's past was also helping her understand herself. Better, she began to see where some of her own interests and abilities came from. Emma had always loved reading and had been good at school, just like Yasmin. She also discovered that she had inherited her grandmother's talent for languages, as she picked up Persian words quickly and easily. After months of video calls with Maryam and learning about her grandmother's past, Emma felt a deep longing growing in her heart. She wanted to do something that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. She wanted to travel to Iran and meet her newly discovered family in person. The idea scared her, but it also filled her with excitement and purpose. Emma had been working at the local bookstore for several years and had managed to save some money. She had always planned to use these savings for a small vacation someday, but now she knew exactly how she wanted to spend them. Emma made a brave decision that would change her life forever. She would use all her savings to buy a plane ticket to Iran. When Emma told Professor Thompson about her plan, he was both worried and proud. He helped her with all the travel documents and visa applications she needed. He also gave her a small Persian dictionary and taught her more useful phrases for her trip. Professor Thompson reminded Emma to be careful, but he also told her how proud he was of her courage. The flight to Iran was the longest journey Emma had ever taken. She felt nervous and excited at the same time. As the plane flew over mountains and deserts, Emma thought about her grandmother making this same journey in reverse many years ago, but under much more dangerous and difficult circumstances. When Emma arrived at the airport in Tehran, she immediately saw Maryam waiting for her with a big group of family members. Emma recognized her aunt instantly from their video calls, but seeing her in person was even more emotional. Maryam ran toward Emma and hugged her tightly, crying tears of joy. All around them, other family members were also crying and laughing with happiness. Maryam had organized a wonderful welcome for Emma. She had invited all of Yasmin's surviving relatives, including cousins, nephews, and nieces. Some of these family members had traveled from other cities just to meet Emma. They treated her like she was their own daughter who had finally come home after being away for a very long time. Emma had prepared something very special for this reunion. She had brought copies of all the translated letters that she and Professor Thompson had worked on together, for the first time in over 50 years. Yasmin's words were coming back to the place where they had been written. Emma felt like she was completing a circle that had been broken for decades. The family gathered in Maryam's living room on Emma's first evening in Iran. Emma sat in the center of the group and began reading her grandmother's letters aloud in English. As she read each letter, Maryam translated the words back into Persian for the other family members who didn't speak English well. Everyone listened with complete attention, hanging on every word. Many of the letters described memories of family gatherings, celebrations, and daily life that these relatives remembered from their own childhoods. As Emma read, she could see recognition and emotion on their faces. Some letters mentioned people who were sitting right there in the room, now much older but still very much alive. "Your grandmother was the bravest person I ever knew," Maryam said, holding Emma's hands tightly as they finished reading the letters. "She carried our family's love to a new country and planted it there like a seed. You, Emma, are the beautiful flower that grew from her sacrifice. You are the proof that her courage was worth everything." Emma spent 2 wonderful weeks in Iran with her newfound family. They showed her all the places where Yasmin had lived, worked, and played as a young woman. Emma saw the school where her grandmother had taught children, the house where she had grown up, and the streets where she had walked every day. Emma felt like she was walking in her grandmother's footsteps and finally understanding where she had come from. When Emma returned to Manchester, she felt completely changed by her experience. The trip had given her a sense of purpose and belonging that she had never felt before. Emma realized that she wanted to help other people discover their own hidden family stories and connections. Emma started a small community group at the local library. She called it Hidden Stories and held meetings every Saturday afternoon. The group helped people research their family histories, especially immigrants who had old letters or documents in languages they couldn't read. Emma connected these people with translation services and helped them discover their roots. Emma also began writing her own story. She wanted to document everything she had learned about her grandmother and her own journey of discovery. She wrote about being a girl who thought she knew exactly who she was, but then discovered she was part of something much bigger and more beautiful than she had ever imagined. With Mary Ann's help during their regular video calls, Emma wrote her story in both English and Persian. One quiet evening, as Emma was carefully organizing all of her grandmother's letters to preserve them properly, she made one final discovery. At the very bottom of the wooden box, hidden under a piece of fabric, was one more envelope that she had somehow missed before. Inside this envelope was a note written in English. In her grandmother's familiar handwriting, Emma's hands trembled as she read, "My dearest Emma, if you are reading this, you have found my letters and learned my true story. I hope you understand that love has many languages and family has no borders. You carry the best of both worlds within you. Use this gift to help others find their way home. All my love. Your grandmother Rose." And Yasmin. Emma smiled through her tears, finally understanding that her grandmother had planned for this moment all along. The end.